set? Okay. Our October meeting is now in session. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence.
Take a moment to remember the 2 firefighters and 9 police officers that were killed since our last board meeting.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We have a few short-term absences with that are working with hirees, and they'll be here as we progress through the meeting. Our first order of business here is a badge pinning of new employees, and due to a lack of equipment and uniforms, we're going to table that for the November meeting, and we can get that all out of the way then.
Sorry about that. Had I known, I would have.
Early.
And Mr. Chair, members of the board, all of the new hires that didn't get their uniforms in totality and felt it inappropriate to have one pinned in a T-shirt while the other's pinned in a dress shirt, and it made sense to push it.
Fully understood. Thank you. Is that going to be an event where their families are going to be here also?
That's our hope, yes.
All right. On to the next item is our regular business meeting, public forum. Do we have any comments from the public?
Have you filed to speak? We do not.
Do not. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next.
Yes,
Our consent agenda consists of September 19th regular meeting minutes and our executive session meeting minutes. The motion is to approve those meeting minutes. That's a tongue twister, I'll tell you, meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All members who approve the meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The consent is approved. Financial report and updates. Director of Finance, Gabe Boldra.
All right. Well, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You have the September financial report in your packet. Starting off, tax levy revenue for the month was at $189,000. We were under by $869,000, mainly due to timing. What we do when we set kind of what our expected collection for taxes, we look at a 3-year rolling average of our historical collections per month, and that's what kind of drives that budget number. And so lagging a little bit behind on some previous years historical, I mean, kind of more close in line with what we saw last year. But as those averages adjust, that budgets adjust year over year. So we really kind of look at and see what percentage we collect each month.
Have we ever had any that did not?
I think when we look at getting towards the end of the year, when we get to year end, we typically see ourselves with 100% collection. And that's usually a combination of current year taxes and prior year tax collection. So we always have, there's always a little bit of delinquency and there's always a little bit of prior year taxes coming in. But we've always been at a point where we're collecting 99 to 100% of our property tax collection.
Still have a carryover for start of the following year.
Yes.
Okay.
Non-labor revenue was at $262,000, which was under by 130. Primary driver of that's our wildland collection. We just have not seen the amount of wildland deployments that we've seen historically. When moving on to the expenses, personnel is at $1,302,000, which is under budget by $110,000. You know, we've got the new hires that are now in place, so we've had some regular vacancies within regular personnel costs, as well as without the lack of wildland deployments for the month, those budgeted deployment wages weren't incurred. So that's what's really driving that variance for the month of September on the personnel. Buildings and land was over budget by $16,000. The majority of that, or the biggest driver of that, is some door repairs at station right here at Station 1. Vehicles and equipment under budget by $20,785. Communication, pretty much right in line with budget there, and managerial expenses were under budget, just pretty much right at budget as well. In totality, we had $1,540,000 in total expenses for the month of September, which was under budget by $114,000. Yes, sir.
Quick question. I know all of our positions are funded, yet we show under personnel that we're under budget. Did that not be right on if everything is funded?
Well, if you think, we just had 9 firefighters, they're funded, so we have the budget dollars funded, but they're not filled. So we have, not only do we have the 9 firefighters that just started in this month, we also have vacancy within the administrative division, as well as vacancies within telecom that's driving that fact that we're under. Plus, you add in, we budgeted for wildland deployment wages, because it's typically a time of year where we historically have seen wildland deployments, and we just didn't have that. So we had funding in the budget for expenditures, but didn't incur them, and that's why we're under budget.
That number will continue to shrink now that we're filling these positions.
But the reason why I asked is because if they are a funded position, those funds should be there irregardless of whether the person is there on the sworn side. On the civilian side, is it any different?
No, it's not different. The funds are available within the budget. They just weren't expended. Looking at year to date, I will point out we're through the first quarter of the fiscal year. Total revenues at $1,191,000. It is under budget by $1.1 million. Property tax collection makes up about $900,000 of that. This variance this month really kind of attributed to that. And then also non-levy revenues under by $279,000. And again, our wildland is really what's driving that. We just didn't deploy as much as we have in the past for various reasons, both opportunity as well as, I believe, staffing as well, Chief. Yeah. Good news though, ambulance revenue is strong. We're right on target with ambulance revenue. Interest income is actually, we've exceeded the budget for the year already. We budgeted $100,000 conservatively. We've already received $133,000 in interest income. So the variance on the wildland side, remember, we don't budget for that to rely on that for our M&O budget. So if we don't see the revenue, or we don't have the expenses, so it doesn't impact our operations or anything else of that nature. On the expenses, we're at $5.1 million total expenses, which is under budget by $597,000. And again, you'll see we're under budget across all of our major categories. The biggest driver on personnel is those vacancies we discussed, as well as wildland wages. Buildings and land is over budget, partially because of the Station 1 door repairs that was discussed, as well as we bought a floor polisher as well, and that was a rather expensive little item. So those are kind of a few things driving some of our costs through the first quarter of the year.
Dave, have you had any conversation with the county as to how why such a big this month?
You know, it's more indicative of what we saw last year, so I'm not too concerned at this point. It's always a kind of a split if we're going to see a big chunk in September or October. So I have not had those conversations with the county. If I don't see us collect in this month, October, then we'll definitely reach out and see if there's anything going on that would cause any delays. As far as percentage of expenses, we've expended 23% with 77% remaining. Again, being through the first quarter, if we were over budget, we'd be in excess of 25%. Because we're under budget, we're below 25% expense. As far as breakdown, personnel, our highest expenditure, 85% of total expenses so far, followed by operations at 7%, communication at 5%, and managerial is at 3%. Finally, year over year, we ended the month with $11.5 million total cash on hand compared to $9.6 last year this same time. That's an overall increase of $1.9 million. One of the big drivers, I'll say, is we did receive our ARPA funding, which was that congressional appropriation for appropriation through the governor's office of the ARPA money that the state had received that was allocated to fire districts. And that's one of those drivers of that. It's not reflected on your financial statements because it's accrued to last year. Because for accounting purposes, we have to accrue that revenue to the period of time that we claim for reimbursement. But it is reflected in our cash. Other assets increased from 25.2 to 25.9, and total liabilities decreased slightly from 32.7 to 32.4. You will see these numbers move more between this report and next month's report because we're in the middle of kind of finalizing all the accrual adjustments and everything for the audit. So you'll see some of our numbers from year over year on the balance sheet change as we adjust those accruals. With that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions the board has.
Do you have any questions for Gabe? No, I've asked mine during your presentation.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, with that said, then, I move to approve the financial report as presented for September 2023. Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the financial report for September is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, staff items, Chief Mazulis, I think this is all you.
All right, we'll start with administrative services. Heidi?
Here, members of the board, we've got some updates for you. We've been talking about at the beginning of the meeting, the impacts of the fall round cold, hitting the division. So we've had some crews have that. We've had absences in the office and some of our leadership here with impacts there, but we keep moving along, adapt and adjust and move forward. So just trying to do that, emphasizing just when you don't feel well, take care of yourself, stay home, keep your germs to yourself. And so we've been trying to do that, emphasizing washing hands and the protocols that kept us healthy during COVID are back upon us again. We talked at length at the last meeting about the dashboard, which is still on here in the meeting room for you to see. Matt Spinelli forwarded the access to Kim and to myself so that we can look at the access and start looking at some templates to get pieces of in that are informative for our division, and then also some of those good news updates for the crews. So while the primary function is the stats and to be useful to them on road conditions and things and calls going out, and there are times which are the measures that are important for the board and the community to understand and for us to progress, we also want to use it in the way that some of the pictures here that we're showing in the slideshow. So the participation in the local golf tournament, that was a collaborative effort. It was team building, it was community, and we've got a slide up on the slide presentation that's showing that participation. Getting things in when we have the memorial, pancake breakfast, open houses, when we start doing our potlucks. That was a huge success as part of the new firefighter orientation. Putting those pieces in there when we've got deadlines for payroll or resources changes, we want to get that information through the dashboard because we're seeing it being highly effective, that folks are stopping in the mail room and collecting their mail and having their conversation and making their copies, and then they stop and they look at the dashboard for a while and watch it cycle through, and they're getting the information, they're making comments, they're making suggestions for improvement or saying, is that supposed to look that way? We're seeing it happening in the stations. Chief Mazulis has reported that he's seeing that happen around the dinner table as we would expect and as we hoped. And so we'll be getting some admin pieces onto those slides, not fluff, but things that are useful and helpful to the crews. And then we talked about that a little bit as well, the having to change our agenda item for the uniforms, the business of uniforms. Stephanie Knight and I have been working through with firefighter Isaiah Morse, who's taken over the uniform program on the ops side with us, and getting 9 new hires. There's lots to do with them, and that is a lot of apparel at the same time. So we're swimming in sea of blue logoed uniforms and keeping that organized and getting it to them in a timely manner. Our vendors have been working really hard to accommodate, and we're trying to do the same, getting it out to them as soon as possible. So we'll have them all set up for you for the next board meeting, so we can introduce you to them and their families. And then keeping that organized. It doesn't stop there. We have the new complement. We want our personnel to look good out in the community, be professional, have clean and functional uniforms. They're hiking out on trails. It gets faded. It can get cut. It can get soiled in the emergencies that they perform. And we want to make sure that they're always presentable and comfortable and clean. So, that's that. Enjoy the photos of the pieces from the things that have happened here in September. We had a couple of retirements, a promotion ceremony, and so, my report, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Questions? Quick question is, I know this whole dashboard thing is, for the most part, in-house. Is there any aspect of it that is integrated with the website that may be pertinent for information for the community?
Our upcoming events and outward-facing things, we generally populate on the website, but no, the focus of this is primarily internal. But we have mechanisms with the website to update and on events and different things.
Also, are we getting an equal share of feedback from the members at the stations at all the little satellite spots coming in for improvements or updates or?
Once we get full build out, we'll start soliciting more feedback. And most guys aren't afraid to tell Matt what for.
Right up right now, at some point here in the next couple slides, there's another one for back and crews can scan the QR code, fill out a totally anonymous survey. What do you like, what do you not like, what's a good idea we haven't tried yet, we're looking for.
So then, if they answer the questionnaire, that it means it's connected to every tablet and computer?
The survey responses come to me.
Oh.
Review them and
Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So they click on that QR code, and that takes them to a web link that fills out an anonymous survey, so it doesn't know who's connected to it to answer it.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
do very well, but that's what.
Yeah, okay.
So that one screen that said hydrant testing or something to do with hydrants, is that part of like an annual planning at the company level?
No, so the local water companies have a desire to know when we're flowing water. And so, Matt, again, he's QR code crazy, in a good way. It's a simple way to do it because everybody's got a smartphone. You're able to scan the QR code and indicate you've cycled hydrants so that the water, we have a way to tell the water company this is what we did when.
It makes it easy.
Any other questions that you might have for Patty? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to operations with Chief Coyle. Do you have the unmute?
I have unmuted. I believe I am good to go. You can hear me.
All right, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right. I will add one thing about the dashboard is that one thing that I learned quickly with Spinelli and company when we started to roll the dashboard out was that give them intent and then get out of their way and wait for them to come to you with alternatives, because a lot of it, the bright idea fairies can get in the way. So as long as we focus on getting intent across to Matt and let him figure out the best way to do it, I'm excited about where that will go. So with that, onto my slide, significant events. I think, looking at the numbers for the last 2 months, one of the significant events aligns with what Heidi said about illness. So we have more calls already in October than we did in September by about 13. And a lot of that is because of interfacility transports and EMS calls. So that hints towards the fall illness season starting upon us, as does my absence and others. So that's what's going on there. As far as all hazard and emerging issues, I think the next variable that we'll continue to be watching is the effects of El Nino, of a strong El Nino on our weather. And right now, the Climate Prediction Center shows us above average temperatures, normal precipitation through February, through January, I should say, and then beginning February, March, and April above normal precipitation, and a slight chance of below normal temperatures. So we'll see. El Ninos don't always pan out to be wet and warm winters, but when they do, they are certainly correlated in the Southwest, at least, with higher than normal snowfall levels, along with higher than normal rainfall amounts in the lower elevations. Regarding human resources, in addition to the items that Heidi had mentioned, or pre-employment screening for 2 radio techs, and we did have a resignation of 1 firefighter, and the upcoming HR training is HR and payroll specialist going to the UKG conference. And UKG is our personnel management software that we use for everything from staffing to getting us paid and being able to get our taxes and everything else out of there. So with regards to telecommunications, there was no major outages. However, there are major projects, and I will defer speaking to those until those budget items come up, and then answer any questions that the board may have at that time. End of report.
Okay, we have any questions for us?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Jason, my question to you is this: I was unclear. You talked about the recruiting for the radio techs, and I was unclear from what you said where that sort of stands and what's happened.
Certainly. So there's been conditional offers of appointment made to 2 personnel, and both of those personnel are in the pre-employment screening process, getting fingerprinted, going through all the different things that they have to do, physicals, et cetera, before they get before we tell them to come on over. So that process is ongoing, and
Great. Thank you.
yes, ma'am. And there's something that Gabe said and Chief Missoula's hit on that I'll just tag another piece onto about the money is for personnel costs, is that when these 9 firefighters come to the floor, there'll also be redundancy for a period of time as they get up to speed. So the money we save with the vacancies, we will lose a little bit of that as we have them shadowing people for their first 10 shifts until they then become part of the regular complement of staffing. Just a heads up.
No, I just wanted to make a comment on, you mentioned showing the employees intent and then letting them run with it. That's something you don't hear of too often. Whereas normally you would hear chief officer or somebody in charge of a subdivision of the district giving a direct order and expecting a specific result on a given date.
Ever works.
It's a new concept to me, and it's something that it sounds like it's working. And
Yeah.
the second point I wanted to mention is that coexisting with other subdivisions of the district, in other words, operations, working with administration or admin services, or working with, other divisions. I think that's a good direction, a new direction, and it's something that's working, and I think it's a result of new leadership that we have.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I think the message is top down, and with another request tonight for the upgrade in this room, would have been very easy to just, this is what we want and do it, but we brought in those that will have to manage it to make sure that it makes sense. And so it's lazy leadership, honestly. It makes our jobs easier if those that have to deal with it are a part of the solution.
I would agree, but I also wanted to add that I think you have some very bright individuals throughout the district that have taken or accepted responsibility for the tasks that they've been given, and they're coming through. So, and it's showing up when you see things like this, as far as this, dashboard, and so on, so forth, so. Okay, thank you.
I agree.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Chief.
All right. Moving on to CRR, Dory is taking advantage of every moment of time she has with the new hires, apparently. So I will cover, what's been going on. They've been busy. Monday, she started onboarding Brian, and, he just needs to get the lay of the land at Sedona, but he comes with a lot of experience. And, it's gonna be a short lift to get him up to speed, so I'm excited to have him on board. The ongoing airport fuel farm finally is done and approved. It's to code and ready to go. The airport's happy. She's been working a lot with the city and the contractors to prep for the Forest Road blasting. And that's just up the street from Station 4. They're getting ready to really get in there and do a lot of rock work to get that road in. And then they've also demoed the last existing structure on their parking garage property. So they're making headway on both of those. And she's been working with them, make sure everything aligns. And then doing fire life safety educator class. And then, well, the inspector recruitment's complete. She listed as upcoming events, but, you know, we've been busy, crews and CR have been busy the past few weekends doing a lot of events at the school. We went and made sure everything was ready at Oktoberfest, participated at Wings and Wheels, and working with SPD coming up on their national night out. And then we will have, once again, our haunted ambulance scaring the children of this community. And Wings and Wheels is pretty cool. It was they didn't sit down for the first few hours. When I got there, they had finally had a moment to grab a quick snack, and they had been just going and going. So it's good. We got a lot of really positive feedback from the community up there. There's some guy with a mayor shirt on talking to everybody a bunch. Yeah. So the safety message is make Halloween safe for the little monsters. Using battery operated or glow stick jack-o'-lanterns. Stay away from trailing fabrics and all-inclusive masks. Teach children to stay away from the open flames and dried flowers, corn stalks, crepe paper, and catch fire easily, as we all know. So careful with your Halloween decorations. And remember to keep your exits clear if you're setting up a little haunted house and your smoke detector's working. And that is the update from CRR.
Chief, if I can ask a quick question, and I know,
Do my best.
Chief, Dory's not here, but, Chief Booth, the airport, their fuel farm is approved. Does that mean that the water supply is as it should be? And also, what's the status on the additional access up there?
I haven't heard any updates on additional access. There's a lot of hoops to jump through to make that happen. And as my understanding, water supply is adequate for the as-built for the fuel farm. But I'd want to get a clear answer from Dory, but if they intend to increase activity with infrastructure improvements, then those would be conversations to be had.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else for the chief? Okay. Back at you.
All right, back at me. I'll now be Buzz. He's doing great. He spent the last couple months on top of learning the job. There's some required classes for his position, infectious disease control officer, and a laundry list of other fun stuff. And he's been really getting that done, getting everything dialed in with Mike Sheehan and working through everything. But the big heavy lift for him and Jordan has been just really, you know, they increased and vetted our probationary task book, brought it more towards a crew level, and added a lot of pages and a lot of content based on feedback from our crews. And he's just been really facilitating getting this onboarding. It's difficult to describe the work that goes into putting on an academy, and whether it's 3 or 9, it's just a ton of work, and 9 does add to the complexity. And they're doing a great job of getting these folks on board and giving them the best tools to be successful. So that's been the focus. They'll be busy all week. So we've been doing good things in operational support. And I can get into training and wellness for Jordan. And he demanded that he be at the meeting, but I can hardly understand him on the phone with his congestion. So I decided to go against it. But as he mentioned, you know, as we've mentioned in the past, we've got a lot of folks retiring out, and most of those senior folks manage most of our programs and conduct most of our training. So we're really working hard to increase our training cadre to accommodate that change in staffing. So we've got folks completed with NFPA 1403, which is, it teaches you how to prepare a burn structure for a burn, so you can have live fire in a structure and do it safely and follow the national standards. And it's one of the more critical classes that you can take as a training officer. And we've got some younger folks that went through the class and then some tenured folks. So we built some depth there. Same with our ROVA training. That's not a nice to have. The Forest Service requires a formal certification for operating UTVs in the wildland. And so without that, we wouldn't be available to go out on wildland deployments, because we needed some recognized certification. And we landed on ROVA quite a few years ago, and but still constantly evaluating. That's the best company for it. And again, we've got folks coming off their year of probation, which there's a testing process for that. And we've got folks hitting their 6th month right now, and there's a testing process for that, and then onboarding the new folks, and then developing a wellness program. And this month we've got airway training, which is mandated by the hospital, because we do what's called rapid sequence intubation, where we give a series of drugs to basically, it's all but one of the drugs they use for euthanasia, and it gives us the opportunity to establish an airway because the patient's paralyzed and can't breathe on their own. And so we've got that mandatory training coming up in the next few weeks. And then we jump right into driver's training while we're finishing up the new hire academy, and then we'll jump right into our TRT technical rescue series, and then wildland refresher, and do it all over. So both of them have a heavy lift the next few months, getting everything dialed in. And in addition to just managing our normally required training, they're dissecting each program and modifying it and bringing more people in to learn to teach it and instruct it. So they've been busy. Any questions on operational support or training?
No, we don't. Thank you.
All right, I'll move on to my report. You can see the monthly incident summary. It's in the responses by station are trending as per normal. With Station 1 and 3, with the lion's share of the calls, and Station 4 is creeping up there pretty close as well. As you can see, our turnout time crept down to 1 minute, 56 seconds. And median response times hovering right around 6 minutes. Purchase orders over 10,000. We've got the CDW purchase order on the docket tonight, as well as the merit data and the AV upgrade. The SWIFT group for new firefighters, that's the cost of turnouts. That's the cost of fire protective equipment for nine folks. And the Blue Card training is a standardized training and a recertification that we did so we can teach incident command. We've got a lot of folks, as we've discussed, retiring, and we have a planned captain's test in January of 25, and Blue Card is one of the requirements for that. One interesting note is we met with the college, and they've indicated that class with some modifications may qualify for credit hours at the college for their tactics class. So it's kind of a 2-bird, 1-stone moment that Jordan and Buzz are working on with the fire science program at the college as well. And in the Chronos, over 10,000, it says annual payroll system. It's part of our costs for the Kronos is the UKG product that Chief Coyle spoke to that manages payroll, benefits, taxes, staffing, so forth. Any questions on the purchase orders other than the ones we're going to discuss in a minute? All right. Social media engagement. We lost 2 followers. I don't know how that works, but we've got a bunch of engagements, and it continues to be a great platform. As I stated, I had the opportunity to speak to the Sedona women's group last week, and Dory and she talked about CR, and I talked about kind of our totality of our operations, and a lot of the feedback was they just love following us on social media, and they indicated a lot of the questions they normally would have were answered because of our social media presence. So, I mean, that's not a data point you can measure. It's anecdotal, but to me, that's a win. It was about 40 or 50 women there.
I think she said they had 60 by the time.
Okay, so a lot of really good feedback, and I indicated it, I educated them on how the governing board works and solicited interest, and nobody jumped at it, but some people grabbed cards, so we'll see. But it was a good event, and we're going to do more of those. I've got a meeting coming up with some homeowners associations, and we're just trying to dive into a lot of stuff, and I'm kind of focusing on district education right now. And so some photos of the ceremonies and the golf event, which Matt has become our default charity golf tournament coordinator, and he does an excellent job. Yeah. Yeah.
Sedona Verde Valley Firefighter Charities wanted a presence at one Saturday, which is the Special Olympics, and play good neighbors and participate.
AKA get free golf.
Got one question for you back
Yes.
on the women's, or just a request. Is, I would love to hear about those events where it may be appropriate for, one or more of us board members to support you,
Absolutely.
the event, with enough time to get it in our schedule.
And I thought, I may be mistaken, I thought I included the Sedona Women's Group in my monthly report.
We did, just not enough time to get
Got
it
it.
in the schedule.
So I'll give you 4 weeks notice. Is that good, or?
Well, that's more than enough, yeah.
No, 'cause I would appreciate you being there, because I've spoken at their events a couple times, and they truly are nonpartisan, and they're just about community, and they're a pretty neat group. And so I enjoy speaking with them, because you don't get I've never had a landmine tossed or a grenade tossed at me in those. Some meetings people want to weaponize politics, and they're just a really good group. So I'll make sure to keep you.
Well, and I've heard really good things about what you both did at that meeting.
Oh, thank you.
I'm supportive, just would love to have been able to have been there.
That concludes the chief's report, if there aren't any questions.
Questions for the chief?
No.
Okay. Go on to some of these budgetary items. Let's see. Okay, next item on the agenda is a discussion, possible action, possible vote to approve BAC request to upgrade and improve the AV and other meeting facilitation equipment in the multipurpose room. Chief?
Okay, and at the board's pleasure, I've got Chief Coyle, and for these next few BACs, I got Chief Coyle, and then I've got Josh here in the room. You mind if they ask clarifying questions about anything?
If you have
Okay.
any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So, I initiated a request for bids in November. Yeah, I know it's October. Yes, November of last year for the multipurpose room. One company was out of town, indicated they're not interested in coming up here. The other one is a local company, and they're just too busy. And they lean towards new construction for the obvious reasons, you know. And we engaged with ABS, and it was the gentleman's name is Brent, and we engaged in a process I didn't expect, to where he 3D mapped the room and did audio. I don't know all the stuff he did, but he did all kinds of things in here and it was when he presented to Kim, Josh, and I the proposal, it was about 2 hours of going over this room and the why and what's of things. And I left the meeting with a high level of confidence in the product we were getting, and in the explanation that all of his install routes to a cable that interacts with Sedona Fire stuff, and the protections and the firewalling and the ability to interact with our network, but yet not cause a situation where it could corrupt our network, and just, you know, the fact that it's ADA compliant, and it's wires to speakers to, it's all components. It's not trying to figure out old wiring and do that. It's a replacement of our system. And with that being said, the BAC describes the work to be involved, and I'll stop talking and open up to any questions.
So I'm going to raise a question.
Please.
And let me preface my question with a comment. I've seen everything we've lived through with this room and believe that it's necessary. My concern is actually an optical and a financial one.
Absolutely.
We're running well under in terms of revenue right now. And even running from the, I guess it's the fixed asset accounts, we're down because we don't have the wildland revenue. Thank you. So I'm just concerned about the timing. I support the need to do it. My question is, do we look like good financial, fiscal stewards by doing it right now, as opposed to maybe in a couple of months when we have a better handle on what the revenue is going to be from the county, and are we having a continuing problem or not? And so that's really my question. It's a question for Gabe as much as anything else. I totally support the need. I just am not comfortable with the timing on it.
So I appreciate that, and you know, Gabe's financial perspective kind of outlines that. I don't want to belabor it, but yeah.
Yes, thanks, Chief. Yeah, so, Director McNeil, I totally understand your position, where you're coming from. A couple things to help the board understand where we're at from a financial standpoint. So first of all, this would be a capital fund item. Our capital fund is funded. The cash is in the account, and it's there for the purpose, so we don't have to rely on other means to ensure our capital needs are addressed. We don't have to rely on budgeting, you know, each year separately for highs and lows of capital fund expenditure. In regards to our current, where we're at on tax collection, we're, in my opinion, nowhere near any type of point of concern. We have more than adequate cash flow within our general fund, so we're not at a point where our general fund is depleted and we're registering warrants or utilizing a line of credit. So there's no cost to us. And really, the timing of collection is simply that. In the last, I think, almost 10 years that I've been here, we've not once had a year where we didn't collect our projected property tax revenue, or up to that 99%. I think during that COVID year, we were slightly under, and when I say slightly under, maybe like $100,000 for at year end. So totally understand and respect the board's concern with where some of those numbers are at, but want to reassure the board, if I felt there was a financial concern to where we have a revenue shortfall, and we need to repivot and do something different, I would. But when you look at what the shortfall is, both being a timing on property tax, if we don't see the wildland, we don't see the wildland. We're not relying upon that revenue for any part of our budget, nor our capital fund. And we have the capital fund set aside. We establish that. We make sure we have annual funding going to that. So when we do get to the time there we need capital assets, we're not in a financial position where we have to wait for cash flow to be able to do that.
So I understand and appreciate all of that. The only thing I think about when I think of the capital fund, I think of the potential things that we have coming. New Station 4, potential New Station 5, the other IT requirements that we have that we are still needing to fund. So I just express the concern because I think as a member of the public, when I look at it, it causes me a question. briefly, any questions? Is this the time to do something that isn't directly related to the provision we provide to the community? And as I said, I'm supportive of it, I'm just questioning the timing.
Chief, you mentioned, that this started back in November of last year,
Correct.
and now we're coming up on a year. And if we were to move forward with this today, what sort of timing are we looking to get it completed?
You indicated 8 weeks to get an equipment and build out, and plus or minus.
That's another 2 months down the road. Which, even if we did put it off 1 month, it'll still be now 3 months down the road. And the prices that we have quoted here are locked in for X amount of time, I would imagine.
Correct, and I can't speak intelligently to what the prices, how the prices are trending for this set of equipment. I do know that in the IT world, prices are fluctuating, but again, and it's based on the company's availability, but to Helen's point, we know what we have, and so, it's working most of the time with some Band-Aids, but ultimately we know where we could go with it. So, but I understand the optics concern and the financial piece as well.
Can you clarify for me, in the background, last sentence, the retool of the space will allow for enhanced delivery of training and meet the statutory requirements of governing board meetings. What's the statutory requirement?
So just the fact that we have to have quality audio and video recording of our governing board meetings for the public's viewing. And we've had some audio issues with board meetings and some video recording. So we're relying on the minutes, the written minutes, and then to meet the requirements having quality audio video recording, we've had some hiccups. And then with enhanced training, the ability to, with other upgrades, the ability to utilize this space for centralized training, or say a chief's message, come in and blast out to all the stations and have quality audio and video that I can turn on, and I don't have to call Josh to turn on. That was the intent of that statement.
And this system we currently have now is installed when?
From late 90s to probably last update was about probably 2014.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, the current system that we're using is legacy stacked on top of legacy, stacked on top of legacy. We have systems in there that are from probably the early 2000s up until probably about the newest 2014. My concern with the weight that eventually some of this equipment just won't work. It's just past its end of life. And the time to get it up and running for these board meetings, just the board meetings themselves, is getting longer and longer. We're getting to a point now where we're looking at eventually having to replace some of this stuff. Even if we don't do a full overhaul of the room, we're gonna have to replace at least some of it. Consider. I also know that the guy that we talked to, incredibly booked, he's very knowledgeable and people know it. So if we do push it back, I wouldn't guarantee that he would be available the next time we're ready to move forward.
And that's why it took so long. I mean, he retooled most of the churches in the Verde Valley. He did the system for Coconino County court system, and he's well known. And that's not a we're not going to get him statement, but I can't answer whether or not if we don't launch sooner than later what his availability will be, but I could check on that.
And is all this new equipment, such as what this looks like here, all gonna go in the room that it was originally for, or is it gonna go out here?
We're gonna have a bonfire for it.
So the stuff you don't see, the speakers and wiring is all in the ceiling. You'll have visible displays and the opportunity to project noise canceling microphone centrally located, so you just talk and it picks it up and transmits it. And then all of the components that we'll need to integrate with our PC will all live in the podium, so we'll get rid of the black rack and we'll just have a single podium.
so nothing goes behind the mirror?
No, it gets rid of miles of, I forget his statement exactly, but miles of cable and all the componentry right here.
There won't be any mics on the desks anymore. It'll all be a central mic right here in the ceiling. Redistribute the audio out this way so that there's no feedback. Nobody has to mess with the mics, not working, sometimes working. The call is all gonna be in the ceiling. We won't have to use the phone on the desk anymore. It'll be basically, his example of what it was is one cable that plugs into the computer and everything works. And
Famous last words.
That is,
For
makes
people
me
like
nervous.
me.
Well, and a big piece of the, of my ask of him was, anybody, any user, and so he worked with Josh to outline what PC works best, and so it'll truly be a plug and play where any user can facilitate a meeting in here.
Lastly, in the big scheme of things over the budget that we have, although this is a lot of money, is this something that we need to start projecting out for capital improvements for 5 years down the road when this new system becomes obsolete?
I'm pretty confident, well, there might be 2 people in this room that'll be around when it needs to be replaced. Based on the feedback from this contractor, and really, you know, speakers and a lot, it might be a mic that has to be upgraded, or eventually the PC will need to be upgraded, but the totality of the system, is gonna be a long-lasting system. And that was one of the questions for me. I'm like, gosh dang it, this is a lot of money. Am I gonna come back in 5 years and say, oh, sorry, gotta do it again? And no, this is a legacy upgrade. Like I said, a lot of the stuff in here was when the station was built in the late 90s.
Any further questions?
No, I was just gonna ask, if everything is tucked up in the ceiling, unfortunately, things need repair, how easy will that be to repair?
so it depends on the system. Some of it is gonna be in the ceiling, some of it is gonna be basically what they call a stadium setup. It'll be like a big box that hangs from the ceiling and on 4 degrees, or every degree will have a TV to it, so everybody can see the TV. In the middle of that will be a big square mic. As far as stuff in the ceiling, that'll all be wires. If something happens in the ceiling, say a rat chews on a wire, that's an issue for the installer, who will come and fix all that. If something happens with the computer, that's an issue for me, and I'll come fix all that. Whereas right now, I'm handling the bulk majority of all this mess that's happening over here, so. They have warranties for all this stuff, and I think he rated it.
It was only like 4-year warranty or something.
Okay, any other questions?
My son is an IT guru, and, I was talking to him about all of these next pages coming up, and, he was saying it all sounds very sound and very, because I was telling him how antiquated this room is. And he was saying it's all very sound, and it seems like it's all, where it should be.
Well, and to your point, the cost caused me pause, and this is anecdotal as well, but I asked somebody who had recently upgraded some conference rooms here regionally, described the intent of the project and said, ballpark me a number, and it was within 10% of what this quote is. So I felt more of a level of confidence.
He was going through these figures, and he said only 1 or 2 of them were a little high. The rest, he said, are right on par.
Keep looking at the requisition versus the motion. There's a little bit of wiggle room there. Is that intentional or?
Correct. I just can't imagine we're not gonna get into it, and Josh is gonna find some high-speed plug or something that he likes better. And, I didn't wanna create an environment where here's the system, and Josh added $1,200 worth of stuff as he installed, so I wanted to have a little wiggle room, and that was just my prerogative, but, it's up to the board to go as budgeted or as quoted or not.
I'll go ahead and make the motion I move to approve the contract for installation and upgrade of the audio-video equipment in the multipurpose room at the price not to exceed $102,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Any opposed? All in favor? Aye. And any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Okay. Opposed? Okay. Tears of joy.
I wasn't joking about the bonfire.
Okay, that could be a fundraiser.
Okay.
Hey, Chief,
Next item on the agenda is discussion possible action, possible vote to approve request for tough books for EMS purposes.
All right, so as described, this is a planned replacement of our EMS ruggedized tough books tablets that we use for doing all of our patient care reporting. And, you know, if you went through the details of the purchase, it outlines, you know, the processor and then barcode scanner and software subscription. And really the barcode scanner is something that we utilize with the hospital, and that's part of our software system, so we can scan bracelets and upload information with the hospital and streamline our billing process and do a lot of that stuff. So these are the modern version of what we bought a little over 5 years ago for our ambulances and engines, and this is just a planned replacement of those computers.
Okay.
Chief Mazulis, can I add a couple things before? I think maybe we could shorten
Please.
the discussion. So I think the ones we have right now are out of date, and that are at end of life. So they no longer support updating the operating system. I think that's one of the key things. And replace as you go with the tablets could cause us to, it puts the data at risk and could make it where we are, we're not able to, well, it makes Josh's life a lot harder. And all of these are on government purchase contract as well. So it is a guaranteed best national price. Josh, anything else there that you think is important to mention?
No, and this is actually very similar to what I was saying earlier about the AV system over there, is that I have hard data to prove. I'm getting more and more tickets on these over time. They are reaching their end of life. They're done. So or a full upgrade of their system. I spoke to Brian SBO, who is the tough book guru, and this is the way he wants to go, and I trust his assessment.
And Brian's explained to me in the past that even year over year, you know, that these software companies can change and tweak little pieces of it. And so the potential exists if we spread the purchase out over 4 years as a replacement schedule, then they'd have to manage 4 software update versions. And, you know, like where the difference lies with our EMS cardiac monitors, we have a replacement schedule that is graduated because that technology is so hard to get FDA approval that they don't change that very often. And but with these tablets, they're ruggedized computers and they quickly outdate.
Is the end of life going to exceed the delivery date if this motion is approved tonight?
Well,
Hope so.
technically, it's already been exceeded.
Yeah.
As far as those tough books go. But the replacements that we've currently done to the tough books will keep them going for some time to come for these ones to arrive and get replaced. I just put in, I think, 5 or 6 different components on each tough books a month ago. So they're running for a while, but getting a replacement would be a lot better than what we're currently doing now.
We have a tentative delivery date if approved tonight.
I have to speak to SBO, he's the one who's doing it. I'm not sure. I know that as soon as we order it, they will give a delivery date. I'm not sure what that date is.
All right. Any other questions for the?
I just have one, probably more technical, but it's interesting that this is running Windows 10.
Machines, yes.
Interesting. So they're not running 11.
They will be. when Windows 10 will be end of life January, and the software that I use to monitor Toughbook, well, all computers, SFD wide, will push out the Windows 11 update before the end of life of 10. So even though they ship with 10, they will eventually be put over to 11. I know we're waiting on some of these dual monitor software to get upgraded to support 11, which is why a lot of them aren't, and we're ordering it at 10 currently. So we will update them when the time comes.
Thanks, Joe.
So glad you're here.
On the products, the barcode scanner, will those be wireless?
They're like little, the scanners are actually built into the bottom of the keyboard that attaches to, so the Toughbooks are two components. One is a keyboard on the bottom, the other is a touch screen, basically a tablet on top, and they connect together. On the bottom under it, that's where the barcode scanner is, and it's attached to the keyboard itself. And as Chief Mazulas was saying, it's used all the time for scanning. The example that SBO gave me was, the biggest one is it actually scans people's IDs into the system. So if they're, bringing somebody in, they scan and get all the information they need right there on it. It's just attached right to the keyboard. It's got a laser that comes out, like a laser scanner that comes out.
Wow, okay.
Like you see at like a grocery store, where it's got the laser that they scan.
In the counter.
Like that, but on the bottom of the keyboard.
Our current ones have them as well, and like you said, it's not only the patient bracelets, but their driver's licenses, populates all the information, and then there's some downstream technologies with tracking our narcotics and things like that, that gives us the ability to increase the use of them.
So they break it down as a product, even though it's incorporated in the unit. Okay.
It's like buying a car, leather seats versus cloth.
Yeah, we can buy the keyboards without them, but as I understand it, the guys love it. They can't. It's the difference between spending 5 minutes to ask them, their date of birth, their hair color, their height, all of that.
Oh, I know scanners are important. Yeah, and it's just, I never knew there was one.
Just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Thought I was going, to be vaporized. It was like Star Trek.
Okay, if there aren't any further questions, I'll go ahead and make the motion. I move to approve the purchase order 9855 in the amount of $69,338.99 to CDW-Chi for the replacement of the EMS tablets. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you.
Make it easier for everybody.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussion, possible action, or possible vote to approve a request for new data network devices and a Wi-Fi upgrade. Chief.
So, when I've spoken with different members of the board and at the board meeting, I always talk about the planned radio upgrade, improving our system, getting it up to speed. Well, that's not entirely the totality of the upgrade we need to do, and all of these components tie into each other for a total system upgrade of how we communicate. And our need for Wi-Fi has increased tenfold since we started using Wi-Fi on our stations, and there's some more requirements coming down the pipe from state and everywhere else. And essentially, this Wi-Fi and this switch system is one of the foundational building blocks for a total upgrade of our system. And Chief Coyle, if you're prepared to give any more background with your history before I keep talking.
Yes, sir, I'd be happy to. So I think 3 key points about this request. Number one is this was identified within the third-party IT consultant that we had as a core component. The best way I can look at it is that everything that we do up until it comes to a speaker or travels across the airwaves on an antenna is all digital. And these switches are a main component of that digital network. So the 3 different versions that were considered were Cisco, were Trifecta, and then we're the Microtech. Cisco has a lead time that is close to 2 years. Trifecta, we've had bad experience with them that has caused Josh and Bob a significant amount of headache, even after their engineer signed off on a solution. What they delivered was different. And Microtech was a preferred brand that both the third-party consultant and the IP architects recommended. So that's the part for the switches. As far as the Wi-Fi, that was also recommended within the IT assessment that we did as an upgrade. And give you an idea, like the difference between 3G and 4G is a difference of 10 times faster. The difference between Wi-Fi 6E and the old Wi-Fi is, I can't do the math on this, but it's 10 gigs versus 54 megabytes per second. So we're living in a flip phone era of our Wi-Fi while we're all operating fancy new iPhones, for lack of a better comparison. All of this is also in the capital, within that placeholder that was placed in the capital that was earmarked for these types of upgrades. And none of the current system is within its usable life. It is no longer supported, and it has known security issues. I think that pretty much sums it up. Josh, anything that I missed that should be mentioned?
Because I would just think of this upgrade as, currently we're using a 2-lane highway to run all of Phoenix. This upgrade will basically expand it to a 5-lane highway and allow more traffic through. We're seeing a lot of traffic jams, as it were, in our current network, and it would cause us a lot less headache to have current and up-to-date systems.
Any questions for the chief? I just want to add that this was a pretty involved communication for the board, in that it was very convoluted with all the different players and who's advising who and when and why. Yeah. Bottom line is just as you described. It's a 2-lane highway we've been operating on, when this is going to be a 4 or 5-lane highway.
You know what, Mr. Chair, we'll focus on brevity next time. So it should be easier for you guys to get the points across.
Well, and I want to commend Bob. While it is, there's a lot of descriptors in here. His biggest concern, secondary to improving our system, is the impact on our taxpayers, and I mean that truthfully. He kept going back to, well, but it's going to improve our system to a 5-lane highway, but it's going to cost this much, and he keeps going back to that, and I'm like, but Bob, is this the foundation to improve the totality of our system? You know, our fire engines have a couple computers on them now, and the cell phones, and then there's some state statute mandates coming out potentially with ambulance services where they're going to have to be GPS tracked, which will then further pull on our bandwidth, and then so on and so forth. So this, in addition to improving or to bringing us up to speed, this system will give us the bandwidth to keep up with the technology as it develops.
If I actually do have a question, and it's not sort of, it's related to this, but in this, we talk about there was a $750,000 set aside for this, or for upgrading the networks. It seems to me it would be helpful to me, let me own it that way, to know where we are in the expenditures towards that $750,000, because it feels like we're doing this piecemeal, and I get why, but I don't know where we are relative to the planned budget, and it would help if we knew. It would help me to understand where we are.
I appreciate that, and that's something. If Gabe can't work his magic in an instant, that's something I'll definitely, because this isn't the last of our ITS. They're going to be popular for the next 6-7 months. They're going to be the belle of the ball, and I have to curb my excitement because I see the look in Bob's eyes when he sees the clouds parting, he's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna make progress. And so, but I also wanna make sure, to your point, you guys are just thanks, and then, hey, wait a minute, we're at 1.8, sorry, I didn't watch it, so.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. So, these are the first expenditures, that we're making towards that placeholder that's in the capital plan. So I will make sure as we have new BACs after this, that I kind of provide the financial perspective as where we're at on that 750. But the one that was approved for this room, is the first one. And then now this one that you have before you now would be the second one. So. You're welcome. Because if it's 750, we spent 950, then I understand.
I would,
I just want to make a point as a customer of Josh. So, we already know that there's not enough Bob and Josh to go around, and that affects me, it affects others here. And the consultant in me is thinking, you know, limitations, dependencies. To me, by putting projects like this at the forefront and, you know, giving him the heavy load up front to upgrade the internet, let's say, are freeing up his time later. So instead of being reactive constantly, they're able to shift into a more proactive role and, you know, work on things that better the district instead of just making everything work. To me, that's a huge shift.
doesn't the Wi-Fi help everything run quicker and smoother? Right, because just in our house, we have
The system as well.
No, I believe in it.
Is we remote into our systems every time we're here. 9 times out of 10, I use the hotspot on my phone because the Wi-Fi is just too slow.
Well, and the future of the radio infrastructure, specific to talking on, you know, keying a mic and talking on the radio, that's becoming more reliant on the switching and the network connectivity. And right now, what Bob's chasing a lot of times is these switches going down and having to go down and fix a switch to get a radio channel back up, and it's very time consuming.
I wasn't gonna speak too much on this, but, this is, as was kind of indicated, we're building, as far as the IT and communications department goes, we're building a house right now. And this IT infrastructure, these switches, this new Wi-Fi is the foundation upon what we need to build on. There's a lot of automation that I have plans for as far as our systems go, and management that I have plans for as far as our systems go. So to talk about what Spinelli's saying, this gives us the opportunity to be able to automate a lot of this. Our current network just cannot handle this kind of load that we want to put on it. And so this gives us the foundation we'll be able to do that, something like that. But
I think for a long, long time, we've been behind the curve on this thing for a long time, and
Talking about it.
known that we've needed to do this. And we budgeted for it, little by little, but we've done it. And we're at that point now where we can't wait any longer because we're at the end of life for a lot of components of this. And I think it'd be imperative that this board approve those things for this administration, for this district, so that we can be ready for the next 5 years at least, and continue building. So with that said, unless there are any other points or questions to be made?
we'll stop bandaging everything and it
Yeah.
will become a full working system.
Right.
Band-aids all over the
Band-aids
place.
on Band-aids.
Yeah, yeah.
So with that said, I'll go ahead and move to approve the purchase of the networking and Wi-Fi systems on requisitions 9891, 9892, and 9893 in the amount of $167,362.31. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further, excuse me, any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is approved. Go to work on that. And thank you for your presentation and the in-depth look at what we're really doing here. Okay, next item on the agenda. Discussion possible action, accepting resignation of board member Gene McCarthy, his position, and discussion of a timeline to fill positions for the duration of his term. Chief, would you like to start off on any of that?
Well, as you all know, Mr. McCarthy experienced some recent medical events which, led him to decide it was best that he resign from the board and take time to heal and spend time at home. I, for one, am gonna miss him and his stories and, his perspective, but I know that I'll be able to go see him and bend his ear from time to time, but ultimately, I appreciate him having the strength to make a tough decision, because I know how much he loved being part of the governing board. And with that, we'll go through procedure and move forward.
Okay. Gene, delivered to us his resignation on September 22nd. So, and he gave it a lot of thought. His current situation is that he is recovering, he's doing better. I did realize, as you stated, Chief, that, the smart thing for him to do would be to resign at that point. So with that said, we've got 90 days to go through a process in which we select a new board member. The first thing we need to do is, as a board, make a motion to accept his resignation. So with that, I will make the motion to approve Gene McCarthy, his resignation as of September 22nd, 2023, from the Sedona Fire District's governing board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. His resignation is approved. With that said, we have policies and rules in which we need to follow so that we make sure that we cover all of our bases when we go through this process. We have policy number 2015-01 and our rule, procedural rule number 19, how to fill the vacancies, as well as Arizona revised statutes on how to go about filling the vacancy of a board member. First thing we need to do is obviously make that motion. The second thing we need to do is put out a public service announcement indicating that with those items stipulated as far as what is required. That has already been drafted, and I believe will be going out ASAP to the website and the local newspaper. That will state when to file, where to file, and when to file by, and what's required to file. And with that said, we will be looking at interview dates in the week of November 6th through the 16th. And shortly thereafter, a selection will be made so that at the November meeting, and let me ask, is the November meeting earlier?
Just a few days.
Which we may, I don't know if we took that into consideration.
I thought you said living in December.
So that'll be, so that after that, the 16th, we'll be able to make a selection so that by the December meeting, we can make that announcement public. Is that correct? December 14th? Yeah.
November 14th.
Okay. And so that we can have someone sitting in that spot, the vacated spot, as soon as possible after that, those interviews and the selection. Are there any questions on that from either the chief or the board?
I do have a suggestion on the information release that's going out. There's no deadline specified for receiving applications.
Okay.
And I suggest we do that. I think it's great to have the interview scheduled, but I think having a deadline for the application
Yeah.
will smooth everybody's life, particularly Kim's.
So we need to add a deadline,
It'll be the second.
the second of,
It's
Well-
not in there yet.
okay.
2 weeks, so.
I thought you said you were seconding the motion.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
However it works.
Just so you
I was
know.
appreciative, Kim.
It is indicated on the draft vacancy announcement, the second. And to be clear, Mr. Chair, our website, the local paper and social media, you're okay with us advertising on social media?
Website and social media and,
Red Rock News.
websites, social media, and the Red Rock News. And I would imagine that this would probably go out in our, where we post our normal meetings. So it's on that location also. Legal wise, I think we've covered all the bases on that.
You can do it by consensus if you wish, and it sounds like you have.
Right, okay. So with those dates established, the timeline established, is agreed upon by consensus, is that correct? Everybody agreed on that? Okay, so we have consensus on those dates, in that timeline, and we're good on that. I would like to add that, gonna miss Gene. I'll leave it at that. Okay, last item on the agenda is board member issues. Discussion of the board members' fire district related activities since the last board meeting. And I usually start to my left, but today I'll start on my right. And Scott, you get to go first.
Yay. I wrote these down so I wouldn't forget. Beginning at, top of October, had a one-on-one with Chief. Learned a lot, as I always do. And, came away with, a lot of good ideas, that may come later or not. Gonna get my next scheduled, shot at getting the bill pay. There was a date, but, you know, my, surgery wasn't gonna let me come in here and thinking straight about all that, so that's gonna come, tomorrow, hopefully. And, Chief and I talked about this, partnering with the community, and, my wife and I have a real good connection with the community center. And of course, they know what's going on here, but I think, with the connections that we have, you know, we can get a lot of things done. For instance, and it comes back to me from when I was working, you know, you got these people that have been here for 50 years, and they're probably not gonna be around too long, but they don't have to be that way. But the problem being that, and I just did it today for myself, Meals on Wheels, and that is one of the biggest things they do for the community here. And it's gonna be, as you all know, especially Chief, you know, you're gonna be running on those kind of things. And not to just say, well, gee, we'd like you to take this on and then bring it back to the community center and say, well, hey, here's some ideas we have, but they would totally be accepted for that kind of thing. And it will also help the community center with the Meals on Wheels, because some of the people do not know, many people in Sedona don't know that it's even there. And of course, you know, if emergency services comes to your door, you know that something's gonna change for the good. So, any more to that, talk to my wife.
Thanks. Helen?
So, one-on-one with the chief, as usual, and, participated in and enjoyed the potluck, and want to thank all of the people who were involved with that. But Kim, thank you for organizing us and the food and the team, all the admin folks for all you did with that, and all of our firefighters who participated. So part of that, and doing the usual bills and responding to the odd phone call saying, Helen, can you come in and sign a check? And happy to do that. And other than that, watching fires up in the Kaibab for you guys, making sure it was up there, not down here.
thank you. Janet?
I also participated in the meet and greet of the new fire hires, and it was a very nice event. Very nice. And hopefully that won't be the first time. And I think it was a nice break for the candidates, not the candidates, the cadets on that day because they were busy. So, that was nice. And thank you again, yes, for everybody who worked so hard to make that happen. And, I too am just busy with the bill pay and I have Jean, so, and my one-on-one is coming up in like a week.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. And last but not least, I worked a little bit with Gabe's office to make sure that we were coordinating the bill pay training for Scott. And during our one-on-ones with the chief, I had an opportunity to actually kind of lay out this vacancy process with the chief. And also we added in labor to make sure that they were part of this process so that they just felt they were part of the process. And we got some good feedback from labor on what their concern was, primarily because this is an elected position in the county of both Yavapai and Coconino, but it goes through Yavapai. So they're interested in the process and who's coming on board and who may not be coming on board. So they had some good feedback. We also talked about the evaluation for our fire chief in that we should be looking forward to a need to meet for that first quarter goals. That's coming up. The Yavapai County Firewise, I've been obviously part of and been talking about some of these prescribed burns and some of the mitigations that the agencies are doing. And you'd be surprised, but there's a lot of work going on around the county as far as mitigation goes and prescribed burns, of which we never hear about it. We see the smoke, we smell the smoke, but we never know what's going on as far as where exactly it's at. I mean, we do after the fact, but I'm personally working on how we can get that word out to the communities countywide on, what's being done and where it's being done. And I know the chiefs, the Verde Valley Chiefs are also kind of focusing on that too. So I'll be working with Chief Booth on some of that as we move down the road. With that said, unless there's anything else from anyone here in attendance, okay, then this meeting is adjourned. Spending a lot of money tonight.
A lot of